What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where every single week I, Graham Jason Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network as well as on the USA Network, because today we're talking Season 1, Episode 10 of Miz and Mrs. entitled Shop Till You Draft. So we start off the show with Miz talking about how when he's off, he only gets about 2.5 days off from WWE, 2.5 days off from work, and he largely spends that time breaking down boxes for Maurice, who does a lot of online shopping. Now, Miz doesn't really have an issue with the fact that Maurice shops a lot, which he probably has already accepted that she's going to do regardless, because he had a lot of conversations with Maurice about shopping relentlessly over the course of Season 1 of this show and then on Total Divas. So by this point, he's probably already well aware, listen, no matter what I say, she's a woman. She's a female. She's going to shop no matter what the fuck I say. So I might as well just let her do it. However, his big issue this time around is not with the fact that he shops, like I said, but with the fact that she does a lot of online shopping, because then he gets left with the job of breaking down all the boxes that all this shit comes in, and it's not just like a DVD or something like that. Like, Maurice is buying some pretty heavy-duty shit. Either it's for the baby or clothes, and they come in big-ass boxes. So Miz is spending the 2.5 days off that he has from the road breaking down the boxes, and he doesn't really like that. So Maurice admits to, shopping online a lot. She loves to shop online for Monroe Sky. But she also says, listen, I'm not going to buy any stuff online for a month, which means that Miz is going to have to do all the shopping himself in person. So basically the bet that they make here is that Maurice will not do any more online shopping, and that Maurice says, or rather Miz says to Maurice, it's way better to go out and get the shit yourself. So Maurice is like, listen, it's a lot easier for me to just shop online, but if you want to do all the shopping yourself in person at the store, the old-fashioned way, as you call it, go do it yourself. So anyway, we find out on this episode, which I'm sure many people already knew, that fantasy football is very important to The Miz. He's been a big fantasy football guy for a long time now, and it's like his one opportunity every year to reunite with his friends from high school, because they all do the whole fantasy football league. I don't really know how it works. I'm not a football guy, let alone a fantasy football guy. But you get together, you draft your teams, you go back and forth. That's Miz's opportunity to kind of see his friends from Cleveland, to see his friends from high school, reunite with them, have a good time. But he's under the assumption that this year, he's not going to Cleveland for the draft. There is a draft this year in Cleveland, but he can't go because he has Monroe Sky, and he has other duties to attend to. But if you do win the Fantasy Football League for Miz's little league here with his friends, you can win what they call the George, which is a championship title with George Mizanin, Miz's dad's face on it, which I wish I could get 10 copies of that thing, 10 replica titles of the George, which I wish they sold on WWE Shop. That is fucking awesome. And George does show up. He makes a very special cameo appearance at the end of this episode, which I was also very happy to say, because I desperately and sorely missed George on this show. Nonetheless, Miz starts playing with Monroe in the pool, and that's when we find out that Marjo doesn't know how to swim. So Miz tries to teach her in the case where if he's not home, if Maurice isn't home, and they're by the pool, because they have a pool, Marjo can either take Monroe Sky into the pool, or save Monroe Sky if she's drowning, God forbid. They need to teach her how to swim in the case, there's an emergency or something like that. So meanwhile, Miz starts preparing for his fantasy football league in his war room is what he calls it. But while in his war room, he's got his laptop set up, he's got his iPad set up, he's got his phone set up, he's good to go. Maurice, at that very moment, mere minutes before it starts, she tells him, go get diapers. We need diapers. Normally, I would order them online and have them here instantly, but you said that wasn't a good idea, so I'm going to make you go do it. And she obviously waited for this moment precisely to get back at him. She's trying to prove a point at the expense of his fantasy football league. So Miz doesn't bitch, he doesn't whine, he doesn't complain. He just goes out and does it and takes Monroe Sky with him. So he does the draft in the car on his phone. He's like talking on the phone with his friends, and then he's trying to draft, and if he doesn't have service, it goes to auto draft. If it doesn't do it in time, I guess that's how it works. He finds out on the way to the store that he forgot the fucking stroller, and he's like, oh shit. So he has to start carrying Monroe Sky in one of those like holders instead. I don't know what, not a carriage, but something like that. But Miz is very happy that he's able to multitask here. He can do the draft. He can go to the store. He can tend to Monroe Sky. He can take pictures with fans, which he ran into on his way into the store. So he's having a good job. He's doing a good job here of juggling everything, but of course, that doesn't last. Because once he gets into Costco, which is where he's, going to get all the shit, he gets less and less service. And as a result of that, he's forced to auto draft the better part of his picks. So he's pretty pissed about that. Maurice, when Miz gets back to the house with all this stuff, Maurice calls out the Miz for doing impulse shopping, which is exactly what Maurice would do if she would be shopping in person or online. And Miz gives her a lot of shit for that. So now she's going to give him shit for that because he did some impulse shopping too, regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter if it's new clothes for Monroe Sky or whatever it might be, because that's exactly what it was. It wasn't like it was anything for himself, but still, impulse shopping is impulse shopping. So he's guilty of doing the exact same thing that he accused her of doing, which is fine, but if you're going to accuse someone else of doing that, then you probably shouldn't do it yourself. Speaking of impulse shopping, Miz gets home, he gets in the back of the house, and he sees Marjo in the pool, but not swimming. She's in a fucking paddle boat. Marjo, whether it was her, probably Maurice, they buy a paddle boat for her, and she likes being in the water without actually swimming. So Miz gets in the paddle boat with the dog, and Maurice is in there, and it looks like they're about to tip over. So that's a whole mess. Anyway, so Miz goes back out to get more stuff during the fucking draft, and while he's in the car, he's talking to his friends on the phone, and he's telling them about the situation, listen, I'm probably going to have to auto-draft all my picks. And they're like, listen, why don't you just buy this stuff on an app and have it shipped to you? And Miz is like, well, that's not exactly me trying to prove a point here by going out to get this stuff, but if Maurice doesn't know, she doesn't have to know. So I'll just wait in the driveway outside of the house where Maurice can't see me. I don't think he has the baby with her. I think it's just Miz here. So he's waiting outside the house like a crazy person, waiting for all these cars to get into the driveway, and then he would intercept the cars, get the shit from these Uber-esque drivers with the shit that he ordered, and then bring it back to his car. And it would look like he went out and got it and bought it himself. And he also finds out in the process of doing this that it's cheaper to do this than to go out and do it in person. So Maurice was right in the end. So he does successfully intercept a lot of the stuff before they get to the house, before they ring the bell. 2 or 3 people he gets. One woman rings the bell, but Miz takes the shit before she can get inside the house to where Maurice is. So before the driver can get to where Maurice is, and after she, hits the bell, I think it's for ass cream or something like that, for diaper cream or whatever. He takes the stuff, goes back to his car, and the woman takes off. Then we go to commercial, and then when we come back from commercial, unless I miss something, Maurice is standing right outside the car. He gets caught. So she probably saw the car outside in the driveway, saw Miz walking up to the car, then running back to his own car, which was parked outside the house. So she catches on what he's doing here. He confesses, I'm sorry, this is what I did. Sorry to keep it from you, but you're right. It's a lot easier to shop online than it is to do in person, especially when you're, doing stuff like I am. I'm in the middle of a fucking draft. So Maurice realizes that Miz does a lot for Monroe. He does a lot for her. He's a great dad. He's a great husband. So she rewards him by buying him a one-way trip. It was a flight. It was a plane ticket to Cleveland for the draft tomorrow to be with his friends. And his friends have no idea. Miz shows up, surprises them. It's a big, return, moment, big pop from his friends. It's a great moment. And he goes out and enjoys the draft with his friends. So Miz, to kind of pay back Maurice for buying him the plane ticket, he buys her shoes. Of course, because what else? It's their new shoes, Louis Vuitton. I don't know what the fuck they're called. I know nothing about shoes. But yeah, he buys her new shoes. She's very appreciative of them. She's very appreciative of the new shoes. And it's a nice little moment. And then at the end of the draft party, like I said, George shows up. The Miz's dad shows up and gets a warm reception from all those that were in attendance that day for the big draft party. So it was cool to see Mr. Miz back here in Miz and Mrs. So hopefully it's not the last time that we'll see Miz's dad here on the show, because he was one of the best parts about the show in the first few episodes earlier on in the season. But that is Season 1, Episode 10 of Miz and Mrs. entitled Shop Till You Draft. Good episode. Check it out on the USA Network. My latest review of Episode 11 will be up next week. after it airs on the USA Network immediately following SmackDown on Tuesday night. So until then, guys, be sure to like this video, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel for more content, and share the video as well. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. I'm Graham Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.